Hi guys! Today we're gonna have a look at a sewing pattern for a tote bag. I filmed for you guys a tutorial for this gorgeous quilted tote bag with many practical features and several interesting details. And today we're gonna go over all the pattern pieces and I will explain all the markings and what goes where, so it's gonna be easier to follow. The sewing pattern will be available on my homepage and also in my Etsy shop, and the tutorial will be up in a few days. But if you're watching this video sometimes in future, it will be already linked in the video description. So now let's jump right into this. The sewing pattern comes in 3 different sizes, and today we are using the size large because my laptop is a little bit wider than the regular size, and that's the perfect size for me personally. When you print out your sewing pattern, use the settings actual size, and then you'll get multiple pages. The amount depends on the size that you're using. And each page has here these little numbers on the bottom. It says grid, and there is a bracket and 2 numbers, and it closes with another bracket. So the first number is the row, and the second number is the number of the piece in the row. So I have here, for example, grid 1, and I have pieces 1, 2, 3, 4, which means I have 4 pieces in 1 row. That's the first row. They overlap. And then when I put together this row, I do the same with all the other rows, and then I put it all together, and then I'll have the entire sewing pattern. I have a detailed tutorial for this, so watch that if you need to. Link is in the video description, so I'm not gonna go into further details. Here we have the sewing pattern when it's being printed out and put together. And now let's go through the individual sewing pieces for the tote bag. Here we have the main pattern piece. This piece is for both the front and back part of the bag, and also for both sides of the lining. The piece has several markings. We'll go into that later. First, we will pay attention to these notes here. It says you need this piece twice out of fabric, twice out of lining, and 4 times out of iron-on interfacing. And it also states that volume fleece is optional. I personally like putting on the volume fleece only on the back part, which is cut out of the main fabric. The back part will have a notebook pocket, and when I use the volume fleece on the outer part of the bag, that way I have some extra padding, but I don't feel it's necessary to put it on any other part. But that's just my personal preference. You can of course put the volume fleece also on the front part if you want to. And it also says that seam allowance is built in, which means this is the actual size that you need to cut out of the fabric, lining, and iron-on interfacing. Before we'll go into all the markings on the main pattern piece, let's have a look at these. So I have here a pattern piece for the front pocket, then 2 pattern pieces for the zipper pocket that goes on the back part, and I have here a pattern half for the shoulder strap, and it's the same sewing pattern that you will need for the handles. First, for the front pocket, you will need 1 piece of fabric, 1 piece of lining, and it's optional to use iron-on interfacing. I usually use iron-on interfacing on the main fabric, and optional is also to use volume fleece if you want your pockets to be padded, and same goes for the 2 parts of the zipper pocket. The shoulder strap can be made of your fabric. I made a certain width, but you can always make it a little bit wider if you want to. And for the shoulder strap, you would need 2 sides of the fabric, and I would definitely recommend a really stiff iron-on interfacing, and maybe even volume fleece, because it's gonna make the straps padded and it would be super comfortable. Or you make your life much easier like I did, and you use a finished strap. So I used this beautiful nylon strap. It worked perfectly, and it was definitely less effort. There will be a pocket on both the front and back part. You have seen we have here a zipper pocket and a regular pocket, and the pocket sides will be covered with the handles. And here is what it looks like when it's finished. So here we have the front pocket, here go the handles, and here we have the zipper pocket on the back. Important thing is to place the pocket centered, and the height depends on whatever you find pretty. I usually go about an inch from this edge. When you fold this in, then I go about an inch above, and that's where I placed the front pocket. And you have to make sure that the pocket on the back side will be placed equally high. And that all leads us to all the markings on the main pattern piece. So first we have here this line. This line marks the very center of the sewing pattern. So I can fold the sewing pattern according to this line, and I'll end up having a pattern half that is useful whenever you want or need to make your bag of multiple pieces. So if you would sew the pieces together with a flat lock, you would not need a seam allowance on this side. If you would use regular seam, you would add a little bit of a seam allowance here, sew the pieces together, press the seam, and when you unfold them, this is what you should end up with. It also helps you to position your pockets. So for example, the front pocket, if you mark the center on the top edge and the bottom edge and you align it with the line and you place the pocket in like so, you'll know that the pocket will be centered. Next, we have here these markings on the top and on the bottom. They are an estimate of where the handles should be placed. They also align with the finished edge of the pocket. So if you leave the edges raw, it's going to overlap a little bit over these markings, but it's going to give you a pretty good idea. And then that's where you place your handles. You have the freedom to go further inside or outside. It's up to you. If you want to have them further apart, that's fine. You can go so closer together, but I'd say like about the center of your strap goes here, so you can align it, and then you have a really good position, and then you can decide if you want to go a little bit further or more inside, but it should help you out. Again, it's just an estimate. It doesn't have to be exactly there, but it's a good idea to know where about the handles should be. And these marks, they basically mirror this corner. They're gonna tell you the maximum width of your zipper when it's finished. So when you look at my bag, I didn't go all the way to the side seam with my zipper. The zipper ended a little bit further from the very edge, and that's what these markings are for. Next pattern piece, that will be this large rectangle. That's for the notebook pocket. And it has a built-in seam allowance. You'll need it once out of fabric. One piece will be made of lining, and you'll need volume fleece. It doesn't matter on which side you put the volume fleece on. And optional is to use regular iron-on interfacing on the other piece. It's up to you. It has here this mark that will help you to align it with the center of the bag, and also it will help you to establish where the Velcro should be placed, because we will make closure with Velcro on this bag, and that needs to be centered too. I personally like having the notebook pocket on the back, which is why I also mentioned that I like using the volume fleece on the back part of my bag. The front part will have these two pockets. The smaller one is for sunglasses, and this one is for pencils and then whatever you want to put inside. And these marks are to know where to sew through when you put the pocket on. And you can position these pockets wherever you want to, but mark this edge, that's the maximum. I would go rather a little bit further inside. And what I did on my bag is I also made two straps made of elastic band, because that's perfect for selfie stick or for an umbrella. And last but not least, I have here 3 pattern pieces for the denim feathers. It's the actual sizes that I used for my bag. They all have a line in the center that marks either the seam that you need to make, or it marks where to position the feather on the side seam if you're gonna use the side seam as the center for your feathers. I will add to the sewing pattern 2 additional pattern pieces for 2 really practical features. The first pattern piece will be for this detachable bag bottom. It's padded with a piece of yoga mat and it offers extra protection for your notebook, and it's also great when you're carrying something fragile. It has 2 Velcro pieces on the bottom, and there are 2 corresponding Velcro pieces on the bag inside, and you can always put it in your bag or take it out. And it's also great when you wash your bag, because since this is quite thick and you can take it out of your bag, it's gonna dry a little bit faster than when you would have that many layers on the bottom. And another pattern piece will be for this feature. I like adding this little rectangle on my shoulder strap. It's made of a rubbery material. Actually, I use a shoe sole material to be specific, because it's a great feature. It's sturdy and the bottom is rubbery, and when you're using your shoulder strap, it will stay in place. And anyone who has slippery jackets or leather jackets will know how important this one is. So that's something that will be also included in the sewing pattern for all 3 sizes. And this is one example of what your finished tote bag can look like. Obviously, you can use any other materials, for example, velvet. I recently made one of velvet for my friend Christina. And of course, you can skip all the logos and all the embellishment, and you can design the bag you want to. This is the largest size, because my notebook that I use for editing has numeric keys on the side, so it's wider than the regular notebooks, and I thought some of you might appreciate this size too. Then the standard size is meant for regular sized notebooks, like for example this smaller HP or a MacBook Air, and the smallest size of the tote bag is meant for something like a tablet. And that's gonna be it for this video. The sewing pattern is linked down below in the video description, and I will link there also the tutorial for the tote bag. If you're gonna get the sewing pattern, thank you so much. It supports the channel. I appreciate you guys very much. Thank you all so much for watching, and happy sewing. Bye!